Back on another edition of Inside the Huddle. We continue our preseason football previews. I'm Sam Word. I'm joined by Kyle Etherington, and we are joined by Frankfort football coach Andrew Dudley. Coach, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Coach, we're glad to have you in here. You've led a very successful baseball program over at Frankfort for the last several years. So what made you want to take on the challenge of leading this football team?
I think just overall involvement in the athletic department, having connections with some guys, knowing that this would be a kind of a non-traditional approach to a coaching staff, with your head coach having the least experience of your staff, but kind of the excitement of getting to have a bigger impact and a bigger involvement in the in our just students, the athletic department, wanting to kind of help us rebuild what's we knew in the past.
Well, you talked about the coaching staff, so talk a little bit about your coaching staff and who you've brought on to kind of help you lead this charge.
Yeah, it was, this was not, it wasn't we hired Andy Dudley and then Andy Dudley found some assistant coaches. We were really hired as a staff, I think if you didn't know the background and know the situation, there were a lot of people that were caught off guard when they saw my name on those board minutes. But I've got a really unbelievable coaching staff of really guys that are bought into Frankfort High School as well and Frankfort Athletics. So I've got Tom Potts, who has been everywhere, been a head coach, been an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, just done everything in football, coached with some Hall of Famers, just a tremendous guy. And loves Frankfort. I've got Richard Salee, former, defensive coordinator. He's originally a hot dog, played college football on the defensive side. On the offensive side, Cormac Jewell, who was, former offensive coordinator. He had been my assistant coach in baseball, took over head coaching in softball. A really great, a guy that just works with kids well. Kids respond well to him. His knowledge of football is I've really enjoyed getting to see that side of Coach Jewell. Coach Jewell's dad, Mike Jewell, who's a retired head coach, athletic director from Ohio, played Ivy League football, ran a podcast or a radio, internet show, high school football in Ohio. He's been doing that the last few years. When this came about, he said, I want to move to Frankfort. He told Coach Jewell, he said, your mom and I are going to move to Frankfort if you guys will have us and we want to be part of things. He's knowledgeable about youth football. He's an offensive line guy. We brought on Scott Freeman, who's a former offensive line coach, hot dog, played college football down at Franklin. Is that when I sat down to talk to him about it, just his knowledge of offensive line play and really, again, huge fan of just Frankfort athletics and wanting to be part of something. And honestly, one of the things is all of these guys bought into what my vision was. And it wasn't the football end of things. It was how are we going to build this thing? How are we going to put a system together so that we can establish growth from kindergarten to varsity football? And everyone was really on board with what I had for them. And so Isaac Chavez, or Chop, as most people know him, he's middle school coach. He's been the middle school baseball coordinator for me for years and done a tremendous job. He played baseball for me, played football at Frankfort, played college football. He's been involved with middle school, but he took over the middle school program. He's also helping at the high school, so he's kind of bridging that gap. So we just have a really good core group of guys that are, Frankfort guys, in the building guys, have connections to kids. And really guys that I know that I can count on, loyal coaches, guys that I'm going to let them do their job, but also they're going to follow a set of standards that we're trying to set for this program.
That leads perfectly into my next question. There's been a lot of talk about the youth program and getting athletes started younger. So what is your philosophy and strategy to get Frankfort football and Frankfort athletics back to kind of the level that they once were?
For me, it's a set of consistent standards. It's getting the right people involved. I feel like by far my number one job with the way I was hired to do this is to get everything aligned with our ideals and our standards from kindergarten to varsity football. So that means flag football for first and second graders. That means our tackle teams with third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. All of these things need connected. So we're trying to put systems in place. So yeah, people are going to change. Talent's going to come and go. lots of things can change over time. But if we have systems in place, then we're going to build something sustainable, and that's really what it's come down to. Mike Jules helped me a lot. Mr. Irwin, our athletic director, has had a huge impact with trying to be one of the driving forces in raising money for youth football, getting those systems in place with, equipment and funding and all of those things. It's a lot. It's a huge undertaking. It takes so many people. And I'm fortunate. I've lived in town. I've been a hot dog for 25 years. I have tons of former players of mine around, just people I've had great contact with that I know are character people that can run things, and I've been able to get them involved, and they've been excited about what we're doing because they see something being built, not just, hey, we need a coach here, we need a coach there, but that's what it's going to come down to. We're gonna make some mistakes along the way. We're gonna we need to change this league, or maybe we need to make some adjustments to how we run some things. But if the systems are there, then it's going to be sustainable.
Kyle?
One thing that I was going to ask you about, Coach, is your roster. But before we get into the roster, looking at your coaching staff, a lot of college football players. So are we talking like a 7-on-7 between the coaching staff and the players in the future? And if so, when can we be out to broadcast that?
Hey, if you're in there in the weight room in the morning, I would think I'd take our chances with our coaching staff if you had to put them on the field. It's a group of guys, and even you take a guy like Coach Potts that's retired in his 60s, and I don't think anybody wants to take him on in the weight room. So it is though, but it's the guys that have played the sport, know the sport in and out, coached it at some high levels. So. I've known some fantastic coaches that didn't play a lot. When I do have some guys around that are great coaches, but it is nice to have some guys that can still move and still do some things.
Definitely make sure that the training staff is available just in case. Not saying that anybody might pull a hammy or anything.
Yeah, just because we can do it doesn't mean we recover well.
Yeah, but speaking about the roster of the kids, your coaching staff has played at a very high level, whether it be in high school or in college, and you're talking about building and bridging that gap. How do you bridge that gap between a lot of these kids who have experience with football but might not be as used to that type of intensity level, so to speak? How do you kind of bridge that gap a little bit and find a happy medium?
Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're coaching football, my past coaching baseball, teaching high school math, which I've done for 25 years. It's about connection. It's about communication. We do a lot of one-on-ones with our kids. As soon as I accepted the position officially, the first thing I didn't hold a big meeting. I didn't get everybody together. I just started meeting with every kid returning from the roster one-on-one. And we sat down in a room together and we talked things through. And I told them what my vision was. I told them what my belief system was as far as how a program should be run, how players should act. I told them, I said, this is going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. But honestly, that's one of the things we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be teaching young people how to do difficult things. We're going to build it off of the weight room. We're going to build it off of strength conditioning. You make up for some lack of knowledge by spending extra time. We just build a new film room in the high school, so we have access. We can sit, we can watch things with our kids, we can meet with them consistently. We added some off-season things that we did with the kids to do those things. But that's really what it just comes down to. It's a lot of communication. You have to make sure that the players know that you have their best interest in mind, that you're going to push them and you're going to be demanding. But it's what we're building here transcends football. It transcends athletics. We're trying to build well-rounded young men. I believe in the philosophy of coach every kid, coach the whole kid, and that's what we're going to build this thing off of.
Well, I think authenticity is something that almost is universal when it comes to people who have seen you coach, who have seen you work with your staff, work with the players. A lot of kids nowadays, it seems as if they are rejecting the, not to get too techie here, but the artificial intelligence, if you will. I think they're looking for authenticity. So how can you, as you said, everybody's getting a little bit grayer. I'm wearing a baseball cap, not because I look good in it, but because I don't want the brightness of my head blinding people.
Sure.
So how can you kind of bridge that with the authenticity? and have something in common with kids who could have just about anything they'd want delivered in under 15 minutes from their phone.
First of all, I love your use of the word authenticity because it's one of my favorite words in teaching and coaching because, and I think it's probably true everywhere, but I believe Frankfort kids will sense inauthenticity if it's present. They need to know you mean what you say and you say what you mean. And when you do that, when you get to buy-in, I think, I think about when I'm growing up in the 80s and 90s and what coach said goes, and it didn't matter who coach was. They were the authority figure. So when they told you to jump, you said how high, and it was all those things. Whereas I think our kid, honestly, when I think about the baseball players I coach now compared to the ones I coached 25 years ago, and I'm friends with a lot of those guys now. My kids now, once you establish the connection, they'll do anything for you. Once they know you have their best interest and you're being authentic, this is who I am. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not going to act like I in the past have been something I wasn't. You make those connections and they'll do anything for you. And it's not different than parenting. Anybody that's been a parent, it's not, you don't just say something once and now I've said it so they know it. Sometimes that means you have to send the same message 3, 4, 5 times. And I'm a big believer in one-on-one meetings. The second half of my baseball career here, I think one of the things that I've learned is sometimes you got to let something chill for a minute, and you come back in the next day and you say, hey, we need to sit down and talk, and you do a 5-minute, one-on-one, or if it's maybe a couple of coaches in the room, but you sit down and you talk authentically. It's a conversation. It's not a lecture. It's not yelling. I mean, trust me, I still raise my voice. I still get heated. But then it goes back to that as well. When things do get heated, when something happens out on the field, and you have that quick, you snap and you yell, and I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But one of my policies is for my whole coaching staff that when something gets heated, you are required to have a follow-up with that kid. You go over, you put your arm around them, you have a conversation, you pull them in after practice. It doesn't have to be long, just a quick, so they know we're good here. Like that's on the field. This is different. We're human beings here, and I have your best interest in mind. And if you do that, you get kids bought into that. You actually, it's crazy how much that changes the learning curve in whatever you're doing.
And Sam, growing up in this area in those 80s and 90s, not that Sam would have as much, experience with that as some of us in the rooms, so to speak, but it's a little bit different time, but it's also a different conference as well too. It's not the Sagamore anymore.
Yeah, it was a different spring for me. I'll tell you that. A little more travel, some new faces, but that's fun. It's a little change for us. But
well, let's talk about the roster a little bit and talk about some of the guys that graduated last year and the guys that you have coming back. And a couple of key guys, the Barkley brothers, Dennis and Darren Barkley. Kiefer Dooley was a key contributor on last year's team. So let's talk about the guys coming back and who you expect to be big contributors this year.
I think the beautiful part about our roster is it's very balanced. It's not like, hey man, if we have some athletes. You look at a Jaden Davis who's winning the conference in the 100-meter dash and is a worker in the weight room and can do some things. You look at a kid like Francisco Vega, who was an impactful player last year, but's really got after in the weight room, gotten bigger and stronger. We're still balancing some things out at the quarterback position. We've got a couple of young guys. We've got a couple of veterans. I think we're going to build our success on what happens up front. We've got some linemen that have worked their tails off. We've got a great coaching staff when it comes to offensive linemen. I've got 3 guys with college experience, 4 guys if counts Coach Salee, who spends a lot of his time on the defensive side. There was a big ask of a couple of players that went from being skill position guys to linemen that are big, strong, can move well. A James Lozano. James was a fullback. We brought him in. I sat him down, talked to him about how important that's going to be to build things with the guys that are going to put their hand in the dirt every down. And a kid, Nathan Bate, going to be a junior, strong kid, moves well. Again, same thing. He was a running back, fullback. Move him up front. You got Benny Chuka. Benny had a good year last year, but I don't think anyone's made bigger gains in the weight room than that kid. He's big, strong, moves well. And a great attitude kid that could be a fun, goofy. And then all of a sudden, man, you put the helmet on him, he turns into a different animal. And those are my favorite athletes, the kind of kids that can be one kid off the field and a totally different animal that comes on there. So I really think those guys up front, Luis Medeiros come in really strong this summer. We one of the things is we've built this off of changing the expectations and the standards with weights and conditioning. So we got a brand new weight room. Mr. Irwin was really instrumental in working with central office and our school board. It was needed. If you ever walked in our weight room, it's not like you couldn't go in there and get strong, but it was very dated, old equipment, not a lot of room. That's been impactful. We've had expectations. Great buy-in from the kids, buy-in from the coaches. Having tons of, not just with football, across all athletics, we've had great numbers in there, great work ethic. So all of these athletes we're talking about, it's hard to compare where they were a year ago. When you get stronger, you get faster. It's almost like you get new kids in there when those things happen.
We've heard that from multiple coaches, and we're seeing that from a lot of the county schools is they're putting investments in the weight room and building bigger weight rooms, building better weight rooms, and
No
putting
rest.
more time.
No more rest.
Right. Putting more time into that. What changes have you seen, and why do you think this has become such an important thing here in 2026?
It's so multifaceted, the importance of the weight room. I mean, first of all, you go in there and we understand being stronger, being bigger, being faster, it's going to make you a better athlete. But even on that, it's going in and learning to work hard. You build camaraderie in there. We've in June, I haven't really looked at the July numbers as much. In June, across all athletes, we were getting about 150 athletes a day coming to strength and conditioning across 3 sessions. And my coaching staff has been running all of those. Lots of the other coaches coming in. Coach Day with soccer, our girls soccer program coaches have been coming in. Our cheerleading coaches have been coming in and working with the athletes. And it's you see a difference in the confidence it builds in kids. So we understand the impact it has on winning and performance. But I would say it goes so far beyond that. It is developing the whole kid. I've seen some kids that had never been in a weight room before, never conditioned like anything we're doing, and to see the level of confidence build over these 8 to 10 weeks, you can see why that's important and why that's taken there. And you got to have the right people around too. It's not just about, hey, go in and lift weights. It's got to be about energy level. It's got to be about coaching kids up and making a connection. When somebody does something well, you go and tell them, and it's got to be authentic, is again, one of my favorite words to use. So I really think that's what it comes down to.
Well, let's talk some football strategy. And obviously, you're not coming from a Mike Shanahan coaching tree where you have all this history. But what is we'll start with the offensive strategy. Over the last couple of years, you've run some I formation, run some flex bone last year with Coach Kinsey. And now I'm sure you're leaning on some of your assistant coaches. What is gonna be your strategy going into the season offensively?
We're still going to build some of that stuff. It started with me when this process started. It started sitting down with Coach Cormac Jewell, the younger Coach Jewell, and saying, what do you think works with not just with who we have now, but what's a system that we could work with that's versatile enough that we can use this in our program top to bottom and going forward. Again, you look at somebody like the Colbys, when Brett was here, and now he was coaching with his dad RC, and Austin was a kid growing up here. Now Austin's the head coach and Brett's helping. They've had systems in place wherever they've gone. What a Colby offense and defense looks like. But if you really are paying attention, it's adjustable to what personnel they have. That's really what we started with. And then once Coach Potts came on with his knowledge base, he and Coach Jewell have been an awesome connection. And then it's been really fun seeing them mesh their offensive schemes with the guys up front and working with Coach Freeman and older Jewell, Papa Jewell as he's being known around here now. Seeing those guys all sit and argue and put things together and mesh that together. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because we're still kind of, forming our identity. But to me, that's it. I mean, I would have been happy with anything we came up with, and I've been in those discussions. But one of the things about our situation is, I know the buy-in that I have with my coaches in what we're doing here, so I can trust their decision making, and they can, they enjoy the freedom of that. So it is really about getting systems in place, top to bottom, and that's kind of where we're at. And I would say the same thing with Coach Lee in the defense. He had some ideas about some things he wanted to do. I was probably more knowledgeable on that side of the ball, but still, I'm not a guy that he's going to come to. And it's more like forming all of those ideas, getting with some guys he'd coached with in the past. We did some clinic stuff. And again, it's really about something that's sustainable. So we can say Frankfort has an identity that whether it's, me in 5 years or somebody else, we have a system that will work for Frankfort football.
Well, let's talk about the schedule a little bit before we wrap up. The schedule starts with your non-conference games against Clinton County rivals, Clinton Central and Clinton Prairie, and then you get into MAC play in the Monon Athletic Conference. So as you look at the schedule and you kind of build out the year and prepare for the year and set goals for the year, what do you see when you look at your schedule?
I mean, everybody knows where Frankfort football's been, and it's been a long journey where we've gotten to the struggles we're on, and it's definitely not a single person's fault. I definitely would never point to a coaching staff. It's just been things have just kind of broken down in systems and a lot of different reasons. Our number one priority is we got to worry about what Frankfort football's doing. I'm a big believer in you got to take a look at everything and say we have to start with the things we have control over. Obviously, we're preparing for opponents and we're looking at film and we're going to do those things. But just by far the most important thing for me is what's Frankfort doing? What identity are we going to set up? Get our kids to buy into what we're doing. We don't need to look at week 2 or week 5. There's no reason to look across the board and say mark winnable and non-winnable games. That doesn't change anything. Scoreboard watching. It's like our goal is, hey, we've got to get 11 guys doing their job every snap of every game, regardless of what the scoreboard says. And that's the name of the football thing. I'd say that's one of the most important things. My best baseball teams I've coached haven't been always the most talented. They've been the guys that can play 21 outs on both sides of the ball. Every single pitch is they're dialed in. It doesn't matter. They could be 0 for 4. They're going to come up and you talk about lack of experience. You get experience playing on Friday nights. So that's our biggest goal. Of course, we've looked at the schedule and kids are going to do that. But one of the things we did this winter, we took our whole team and we did a book study. I am not a reader. I've read a handful. Anyone that's ever worked with me in the last 25 years is rolling their eyes right now because I'm a well-known, I'm a math teacher, and I think reading's really important. I just do not enjoy the process of reading. But I was listening to, I'm a podcast listener. I do a lot of running. I listen to podcasts when I run. And one of the high school coaches that had worked with a program that seemed similar to ours talked about reading this book, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Our coaching staff read it first. And again, anyone that knows Richard Salee, when I hand that book to Coach Salee, I'm pretty sure he thought I was nuts. But he read the book in about a day and said, this is incredible. This matches up to everything you sold us on, buying into this program. The book is just, it's written in a parable format. It's a lot about focusing on the things you have control over, not worrying about goals that you don't control. You can say, we want to win 5 games, or we want to have a 500 record, or, we can say we want to actually say all those things. But if you're saying that and spending too much time on that, you're not focusing on what's in front of you. You can say, hey, we want to beat Clinton Prairie, but they're week 2. What are we worried about Clinton Prairie? We have Clinton Central. You can even say Clinton Central. Why are we worried about that? We have a scrimmage with Benton Central. Of course, being a baseball coach, we're playing 4, 5, sometimes 6 games in a week. So you definitely have to hone that skill of being able to concentrate on the game that's in front of you. But I'm a big believer, you don't circle games on the schedule. I don't know what that means. If we're going to say we're going to circle, Western Boone on the calendars. I mean, we're not going to try our hardest the other weeks, Exactly. To me, it doesn't make any sense. You're going to pour your heart and soul into every down. If you can do that, you're going to build success. And what is success? Is every win a success? Is every success a win? Not necessarily. It's how you compete. It's controlling what you have control over. I mean, there's injuries, there's bad calls, there's superiorly physical opponents. There's just all sorts of things that if all you're worried about is scoreboard watching. And listen, anybody that knows me knows I'm a very competitive person. I do my best coaching when I try to limit that when I'm coaching, because everything you're worried about there, you don't have control over. And you do have control over. Coach your kids up, play hard. If you're a kid, be coachable, effort, attitude. Those don't take any talent. The scoreboard doesn't matter if you're talking about effort, attitude, coachability. That's it. That's what we're talking about. And like I said, of course, we're looking at the schedule and we're going to prepare. We're watching film, and I'm learning a lot about that into things. But that's what my philosophy comes down to. Because otherwise, I think you're just setting yourself up for when things don't go well, you're not going to react the same.
If you had to put into one or two sentences your mission statement for your program, what would it be?
One or two sentences. So I think it comes down to focus on what you have control over, work hard and be coachable, be a good person. I'm going to add a third one there.
There you go.
Because I think being a good person is
No,
all
you
part
can't.
of it.
Not allowed.
Well, then I got to switch one of them out. Don't work that hard. Just be a good person. No, I think when I talk about coaching the whole kid, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And the first part of my coaching career, I just wanted to win. I'm not saying I think I was relatively decent to my players and things like that, but I just wanted to win. And when the more of my focus that started to go towards coaching the kids, coaching the whole kid, the ironic part about it is the less focus I had on winning, the more we won. I don't think it's coincidental. I think it matters. I think when you are a whole, well-rounded person, you're able to do hard things. You respond better to when things don't go your way. You stay focused. You're a better teammate. Better teammates perform at a higher level. All of those things. So that's all coaching, teaching, parenting. It's the same. It's the same philosophy for me.
Before we wrap up, how can fans kind of stay involved with the team, keep track of what you guys are doing, and what message would you have for fans for this upcoming year?
I would say I'm gonna start with the message. I want everyone that is adjacent to, or watching our program just to take this. We're gonna work hard. Our kids are gonna play hard. They're gonna play hard. Our coaches, I'm gonna have every coach on that sideline is gonna have a job to do. We're not gonna have any rah-rah guys. We're not gonna have if you walk in and you look at our sideline, one of my goals is you have no idea what the score is. We're going to coach kids up. Our kids are going to play hard. They're going to be better people for it. And if you're a fan, I want you to watch that. And absolutely, we want to see results, and we want to see wins, and we want to see better season results. But that's it. And honestly, if you're a fan, if you're a parent, I would think that's what you would want for your son.
And then how can people keep track of social media or anything like that you guys are going to
certainly following Hot Dog Athletics on Facebook, Instagram, X. We got a great team of people that post constantly. I've had a great response. I'm not a big social media person. I think it's great, but I also think for my own personal sanity, I
wish I had your self-control.
Well, maybe it's an age thing. But honestly,
the sun is shining outside. Go enjoy the sun.
Well, some of it is too. I'm worried about what we're doing,
right.
and I care what people think. I want people to respect what we're doing. But I also know, people vent and people have, so. But it's also a great time because I get great feedback. I've seen, what Coach Solis posted. You guys are doing in the weight room. I see these videos of kids coming in at 7 a.m. and working hard. Baseball results. I get texts from former players. Man, it's awesome. I saw you guys beat Greencastle on Saturday. It's like some really cool stuff. So I do think I think it's a great time. Used to you had to get on, read the paper, get online, find, go to whatever website and find the score the next day. Whereas now, live results and following those things. So we have a team of people that do a great job with, updated scores, highlights, graphics, all of those things. They do a really good job.
That's head coach Andy Dudley of the Frankfort football program. That'll do it for this edition of Inside the Huddle. For Kyle Etherington, I'm Sam Wirt, saying so long, everybody.